What's up, everybody? Welcome to the latest episode of the Rich and Turbo Heavy Half Hour, now brought to you on video as well as in audio. My name's Rich. I can be found on X at FuzzDoomRip and all the other socials. You'll find me. I do reviews at Musopedia of Metal. I'm a Doom Charts contributor, and super excited to have our Rich and Turbo Heavy Half Hour YouTube channel up now as well. I'm with my partner Turbo here. Turbo, what's going on?
Nothing. Just happy, smiling, happy.
Just happy to be here. Wonderful, lovely, excellent. We have a very cool interview today with one of our favorite bands called Mooch from Montreal, Quebec, Canada. And they have a new record coming out called Kin on June 20th, and we spend a good amount of time with Ben and Alex from Mooch talking about that new record. But before we do, if you've listened to this show before, you know every time I get a Canadian band in front of me, I ask about like 90s Canadian rock, etc. Since, and again, as Turbo always calls me out, I tend to mention my time in Buffalo, being near the border, etc., and having kind of that access to 90s Canadian rock. So always comes up in our conversation with Mooch today. So I thought we would talk about some of our favorite Canadian bands, and maybe not the ones that you would expect. Ones maybe we'd want you to check out, or ones that we think are underrated. So that's what we're going to do prior to talking to Mooch. Turbo, I know you and I have chatted a little bit about this. What would you mention first when we're talking about Canadian bands that we love?
Probably April Wine. For me, I don't know, they've been around since '69, which it's kind of surprised me because I didn't get into them until '81. So I never knew much about their '70s output. But I think the album that came out in '81, The Nature of the Beast, was the one that most Americans or United Statesians picked up on, because it's got that biggest hit, their ballad, Just Between You and Me. I don't know if that was played at your school dances, but it was played at ours.
It was not. I think I was still a little too young to be at the school dance where they played the April Wine song.
I just, it's a great album. It's kind of split up. The first half of the album, which it has Just Between You and Me on it, is a little bit more disco-y, not pop disco-y tinged. It's still a rock album, but it seems like it has those bits and pieces of disco pop bleeding into it.
And what year did it come out?
81.
So I guess there was still some of that going on where all the rock bands were trying to get in on the, some of the little dance craze, maybe?
Maybe. My favorite song was on the last song, on the second half. Second half is more rock, hard rock, seems to me. The One More Time is the song on it, song I was talking about. Now, the album before, Harder, Faster, is probably the one nowadays that gets more recognition, because a lot of its songs show up in movies and TV shows and stuff like that. There was a movie that came out in 2009 with Timmy Olyphant, the greatest American actor of our time. You don't know who Timmy Olyphant is?
Yeah, he was in Justified.
Right. You don't think he's the greatest American actor of our time?
He's very good. I think that's a whole other show.
He was in a movie called High Life, and it's pretty funny. It showcases a lot of April Wine songs. It's really kind of strange, but it's cool. It has the songs I Like to Rock, which is probably their most famous because it has riffs from the Beatles and the Rolling Stones in it. It's all of a sudden it switches up, and now it's playing a Beatles song and a Rolling Stones. But yeah, April Wine is probably a classic Canadian band that needs to be checked out.
I would agree with that. I was challenged by you guys to go down an April Wine rabbit hole. I haven't yet, but I'm going to. I bought some of the records because they were really cheap at my guy down the street, but I need to dive in and figure out what I'm missing. Cool, yeah, and I'll start there. I went a little bit towards very much towards the 90s stuff that I always tend to reference when we have Canadian bands on the show. I actually picked out three, two of which I know, one of which I know that you're intimately familiar with, two of which maybe not so much. Number one, the first band I want to mention is Sloan. And we mentioned Sloan in the interview with Mooch in a little while. Sloan to me is one of the greatest power pop bands that have ever existed on the planet, no matter what country, year, genre, whatever. Sloan rules. Their songwriting, they have four songwriters, four singers. They just can write the most infectious tunes that you possibly could. And they had a four album, I guess you could actually say 5-album run. But 92 started with Smeared, and they sounded more like a shoegaze My Bloody Valentine band, but some really great songs. There was a song called Underwhelmed, which you might have heard, a song called I Am the Cancer, which was really great too. But really when they took off was in 94 with Twice Removed, which depending on, I know there were surveys in Canada where that was actually voted the greatest Canadian album of all time, which blew my mind. Just again, catchy, super awesome pop songs. But then from 94 to 99, they had Twice Removed, One Chord to Another, Navy Blues, and Between the Bridges, which were all just, to me, they are like the modern Cheap Trick of the 70s and early 80s. That's how I would put them. And I would say, I like them even more than Cheap Trick. But those 5 albums are all worth your time. All the records are worth their time. We're at number 13 at this point. And just check it out. If you like infectious power pop, Sloan is the best band to have ever done it, in my opinion. Second, I would go with the Tea Party. The Tea Party, again, 90s band, trio. Got to see them a few times when I was up that way going to school. And for a trio, they make more sound than you can imagine. The 3 records that I would call out for the Tea Party would be Splendor Solace, The Edges of Twilight, and Transmission. Splendor Solace is very Zeppelin-y. There's a lot of Zeppelin going on in that record. Edges of Twilight is a little bit more produced. There's a lot more sound to it. But also you get a lot of Zeppelin, you get some Doors, and you get kind of this the cult vibe as well. But so much noise and so much music for a trio, it's amazing. And their 97 record, Transmission, which I liked, but started to move towards more of like an industrial feel. Some really great songs on there, but really dig that trio of records from the Tea Party. They're still going, from what I understand, waiting for some vinyl represses, but Tea Party is one of the other Canadian bands that I would mention. Third is a band that I think you can opine with me on, and that would be I, Mother Earth. I, Mother Earth came out at a time when I was just buying anything that they put like an alternative label on, or like it was that kind of, I saw the cassette at like The Wiz, and I went and I bought it, and I loved it. Had no idea at the time because it was 93. Dig, it's called Dig, came out prior to me going up that way, and just was a great record. Again, like harder rock alternative, I would call it. The hits on there, if you want to call them hits, not really from an American standpoint, but it went platinum in Canada. There was a song called So Gently We Go, which was a really killer song. And Levitate, probably my 2 favorite ones. But when I really got into I, Mother Earth was Scenery and Fish, which came out in 96. Just so great. And One More Astronaut is a song that I still kind of sing to myself. The track after that, Another Sunday. Like, these are bands that, if they came out in the U.S., would have been huge radio hits. Would have had huge radio hits. If a band cut like Live can, there was no reason why I, Mother Earth wasn't all over that as well. those are my three that I'd call out. There are so many really cool Canadian bands, especially from that era, that I spent a lot of time going to see, listening to. But you're an I Mother Earth fan, right, Turbo?
Yeah, I saw them 2 or 3 times. Rain Will Fall was the big single
Yes.
down here.
Yeah.
Yeah, I caught them in small clubs a couple of times. It was always a great show. Um, I can't recall much more than that.
Really energetic live show, and they some of the songs are pretty long too, so they kind of jammed a little bit
Kind of
too.
fall into the jam band of the '90s part, but
Yeah,
still more of an alternative rock style.
yeah, absolutely. And when you think about a band like, again, like I Mother Earth, they sold 320,000 copies of Scenery of Fish in Canada. That's a monster record for a band that a lot of people down here probably never even heard of. So those are the three that I'd call out to check out from the 90s. Go check out April Wine. I'm going to spend some time with April Wine as well. But Sloan, I Mother Earth, Tea Party, depending on what your tastes are, you'll find something that you like amongst those records. All right, cool. Turbo, are we doing a future classic song here? Or?
Yeah, yes, we
Excellent.
are. There was one band from Canada. They put out a really great first album. It rocked hard, and then they changed drummers, and then all of a sudden they just sucked.
And who was that?
Who do you think?
Let's not. We will lose some.
We
We,
gave
we
them
will
we
lose
gave we gave
subscribers.
them our shortest review.
We will lose subscribers based on that feedback. I'm thinking of some specific people who would stop listening to us if you mentioned the band that you were about to mention. But let's no, probably not. Let's move on though, and let's get out of this very sensitive topic and talk about the future classic song for this
Fans
episode.
are very sensitive. No, just
They are.
forgive me, folks, because I grew up around a bunch of people that just made me annoy them. Were annoyed by them because of that. Anyway, my future classic song is from a band called Mudfinger, and the song is Hobo. The album is Mementia? Amentia? I don't know. They're from Germany. It's heavy, stoner sludge, killer heavy vocals, like I like them. Kind of almost whiskey soaked, harsh, heavy. Uh, they're influenced by just about all the classics. They sound a little bit like Dozer to me. Not that that's a bad thing, but yeah, it's a really great album to check out. I haven't heard many people talk about it or seen it talked about anything, but yeah, check that out. I'll have that up as soon as I remember.
Excellent. Yeah, it's a great record. It didn't quite make my chart, but I think I found out about it late. But it might be a grower for my end of year list because it was a really really good record, and that's a really good song. And yeah, Turbo, throw that up on the playlist. I think we can do some stuff on YouTube now with playlists and stuff that we'll have to kind of investigate if we have the ability to kind of attach a playlist to this stuff. We're all both very new to this whole YouTube channel thing, so we'll try to figure that out.
Remember.
I'll bug you. Don't worry. So yeah, let's jump into our interview. We get to talk to Ben and Alex from Mooch. Mooch has been one of our favorite bands for a while now, and this is their fourth album that we're going to be talking to them about, called Kin. Comes out on June 20th, and to me, it's their heaviest and their best and their most focused. And yeah, let's talk to them about it and hear it directly from them. Here's our interview with Alex and Ben from Mooch. Enjoy. What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the Rich and Turbo Heavy Half Hour. We are extremely excited to have Julian and Ben from Mooch on the show. Julian and Ben, thank you for joining. How are you guys doing tonight?
Awesome, man. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, thanks very much. Doing pretty good and excited to chat here for a heavy half an hour.
Excellent, excellent. So, um, Turbo and I are huge fans of the band. And I think we are both going to agree that your fourth album, titled Kin, coming out on June 20th, now via Black Throne Productions, is our favorite. And I think we can say that pretty solidly as huge fans of the band to begin with. What would you say for people who haven't heard it yet or and are excited to hear it is different about this record compared to the three that came out before this one?
This is definitely our heaviest one, like by far. Um, yeah, we're not really pulling any punches on this one. There's still a little bit of experimentation, like there was in the last couple of records, but this is definitely probably the most straightforward record we've done since Hounds, but for sure on the heavier side.
Yeah, it's really nice. Thanks for the compliment. That it's nice to hear that out of all the records, you're really digging the new stuff. Not many people have heard it as of yet, so it's some early feedback for us, and we're really appreciative of that. Yeah, I feel like we took the last two records were made in a similar time for us. We recorded those two records in one batch recording session, and then kind of teased them out and treated them differently. But essentially, those were represented a same era of our sound. A couple of songs had been sitting collecting dust over the COVID window, and we just had a backlog of stuff. So we said, let's just record it. And we were in the mood for doing some more 70s style psychedelia. Some acoustic tracks were featured, and we kind of wanted to go in that direction for some of the components of the last two records. And for Kin, it was the first time that we were sitting with almost a blank slate of no songs in the pipeline, ready to be recorded. So we actually got to write music that was up to date with our live experience, with our musicality, and what we've all been listening to as of late. And after having done the acoustic stuff and the 70s psych stuff, we just really wanted to make a hard hitting 90s kind of desert rock sound, which is the original kind of mission statement of the band and what we started with in Hounds. And especially working with Black Throne Productions, we were just so inspired by all the other heavy bands that are on that label too. And we said, we think we can swing pretty heavy sometimes too. So we put our heavy foot down and tried to go in that direction.
It's funny. I was looking on our Turbo and my text exchange, and I said just this. I said the new Mooch is heavier and more '90s leaning than all their other stuff, right? Or am I crazy? That was a quote from Turbo and I having a conversation about this record. So it's pretty cool that we're on the same page there. Um, I, the There are some songs on this record that, and Turbo can probably attest to this too. He sent me a note saying one of them would have been like a radio hit in the 90s. What are some of your influences for these tracks? Any specific bands or any specific records or songs that you were listening to while you were writing, or anything that comes to mind there?
I could say for me personally, like on this cycle, I kind of like I guess rediscovered ZZ Top. I was always like huge into ZZ Top. I know they're not a '90s band, but like for me, they were like probably the biggest influence. Like Billy Gibbons's playing and writing style was massive. The song I think you're talking about is "Hang Me Out,"
It
and
is, yes.
Holy.
I was yeah. When you said radio hit, that's like the one that I think like
Wow, what a swing. Confident swing. I love it, Joe.
yeah. But I mean, I don't know. That one for me, I had been I also work as like a audio engineer producer, and I was working with this band Evergreen, who has since like broken up, but they were like hugely '90s influence, like big Nirvana, big Alice in Chains, Soundgarden influence type band, and I was working with them at around the time that we started writing that song, so like they were kind of like a local influence, I guess, that was pulling from like '90s greats. But yeah, man, for me, just big Z Top. I don't know about you, Ben, but
I could remember all the moments on our Visions tour where Julian was putting on ZZ Top in the van, and we were both I was personally discovering a lot of those songs for the first time and was appreciating the guitar playing and the harmonies and the kind of gritty writing style of some of the tracks that Julian was playing. So I could attest to that. And I think for myself, it always comes back to Caius for me. I just that's really like they were the band that set me on track to play the kind of music that I feel like I bring to the table and that we sonically, have tried to kind of be in that genre. And you just listen to an album like Sky Valley, and it's front to back, it's undeniable, it's so solid. It's in another regards, Songs for the Deaf was like a really good concept album, and I think we wanted to do something that was really solid conceptually as well. In the past, Julian had a good way of describing the last two records. We tried to do stuff that was more like a Beatles track list, where each song is going to be pretty different from each other, and that's kind of like the special sauce of the records. But now we wanted to make something that really told a story conceptually, sounded very much in line from beginning to end. And I think of records like Sky Valley, and I think of records like Songs for the Deaf that inspired the goal sonically for myself on this record.
Very cool.
Yeah, it's cool to see. You said I was going to say it sounded like you got some Southern rock influence on this album, so it's kind of good to hear you say that. ZZ Top was kind of your influence on that.
Oh yeah, definitely. I mean, they're for sure the first band that comes to mind. Obviously, there's like a plethora of bands, like Ben mentioned. Kais is always like huge. That's been like our sort of North Star band that all three of us are hugely influenced by. But yeah, man, for me on this cycle, it's really been a lot of ZZ Top and Southern rock in general. Like I love the Allman Brothers and Leonard Skinner and stuff like that. But yeah, huge ZZ Top on this one.
Very cool. I'm sitting in Florida talking to Canadians who love Allman Brothers and Leonard Skinner. That's very cool.
ZZ Top.
Come visit us in Florida. Very cool. Turbo, I've taken the first few questions. What do you got for the guys?
It shows on your Bandcamp page that both of you play guitar. I thought one just played guitar and one plays bass. So y'all did both switch it up here and play guitar on separate songs or on the same song, or?
For this record, it was almost half-half. I think there's 7 songs. Julian had 4 that he's playing guitar on, and I had 3 that I'm playing guitar on, and we each play bass for each other's guitar playing. That was something that started with Wherever It Goes, that record, in 2023. I think that one came out. And Julian's a phenomenal guitar player, and he had been playing bass in the band primarily up until that point. But we wanted to kind of expand our musicianship and kind of incorporate everybody's strengths to the fullest, and just give everybody the chance to express themselves in any ways that they feel comfortable. So Julian started writing killer songs for the band and on guitar, and I started playing more bass. And this is the record that probably features the most of Julian's guitar playing, and you can tell like with some of the licks that you're referring to, like the Southern rock licks and stuff. He has a very strong character when he plays guitar. You can definitely tell that it's him, in my opinion, because I've been playing with him for so long. But yeah, live we do the same thing. We'll have part of the set where we'll cross over to each other's respective sides, pick up the bass, he'll pick up the guitar, and we will deliver part of the set that way as well.
Oh,
Who's doing the guitar solo on Lightning Rod, because that tone is just killer. Julian, awesome.
Yeah, thank you, dude. That's funny actually you bring that up, because that solo in particular was from the demo of the song, and like I just found that the performance and the solo was kind of like improvised. I didn't think I was going to be able to get it again when we actually tracked the record. So that one in particular is actually from the original demo of that song.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I also like that you added a little coda to the end of that song. Lightning Rod. That was killer.
Yeah. Yeah, that was awesome.
We were chatting about that today as we were talking about our favorite tracks on the record. And I mentioned Lightning Rod. I think you mentioned trading instruments live. I think the only other time I really saw that was another Canadian band, Sloan, where they would do that like at the end of their set. Towards the end of the set, they would just all trade instruments, and I think they played one song off the Twice Removed that they always played with different instruments. So it's kind of cool that you guys are doing that. And in the same kind of vein as thinking about Sloan, all those guys sing and all those guys kind of contribute to that. Are you guys all singing leads or are you splitting it up? Is it more like the harmonies when you see like Alex being involved in the vocals as well, or how does that work? Because we're definitely hearing different voices, on the record. So
Yeah, on this one, I would say it's primarily Ben singing the leads. I take the lead in Hang Me Out, and Alex sings the lead section in Gemini, but it's something that we're all like comfortable with, like I mean, at least Ben and Alex are incredible singers. I try to like keep up with them, but we all have, our own unique voices that we feel can fit certain songs and certain styles. So we figure why not do it. It's just, dude, it's so funny you mentioned Sloan because the song "Hang Me Out" kind of reminded me of what's Sloan's biggest hit there, like and the joke is when
yeah,
you
it's
want.
Motor City Maniacs.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
song. It's so when we recorded "Hang Me Out," Ben had recorded a harmony, kind of like off the cuff. Like we didn't plan on doing this harmony, we didn't demo it, and I found that him adding that harmony kind of gave me a vibe of like that band. It's actually so funny you bring them up.
Very cool. Very cool. See, terrible. I'm talking about 90s Canadian rock, and it finally was, came to bear something. We've talked to our show. We've done, I don't know, how many shows have we done? Like 50 shows, maybe Turbo, maybe more. I think we've talked to like 20 Canadian bands. Like we've had like a ton of Canadian bands, and I think it goes to just how great the music and the scene is up there right now. There's just a ton of really great Canadian music, and you guys are also nice to come on the show too. You guys won't say no to us, so that's really cool too. Um, you mentioned like a cohesive record, and obviously when you look at like the song titles and the album cover, and there's definitely like a space/planetary thing going on here. Tell people who haven't heard the record yet, give them a little bit of a preview if you don't mind of what kind of thematically the record is all about.
So the record conceptually lives in the celestial kind of space on a surface level. You look at the cover and you look at the song names, and the first kind of thing that you can come up with is that, yes, everything that's happening here is happening in the sky. There's the sun, references to certain parts of an eclipse, certain constellations and planets. Um, and I guess where that stems from is this idea that across so many different cultures and our history as a species on this planet, we've used the sky to do a plethora of things, whether it be navigation, whether it be holding stories, whether it be used to help predict agricultural cycles. There's so much navigation and kind of information that we toss between the stars and the sun and the moon. So kind of using that platform as a way to then tell stories of more personal matters. Then you kind of get to the micro, and it's like there are three people who are in this band who have personal stories and emotions that they love to share through the lyrics. So the sky is the language with which we kind of approach telling these stories. And Kin, the album name, kind of refers to us three. We've been playing in this band together for what'll be 10 years now. And, I've known Julian my whole life. Our families grew up together, and we've really taken a lot of time in the last year or two to really appreciate all the work that we've put into this band, the opportunities we've had together, the times we've shared, the experiences we've shared, and stepping up to the plate to make this record. There was a big sense of being appreciative for each other's company, especially now I live away from the guys. I'm not in Montreal with them, so every time that we're together feels that much more special. And when we made this record, it was the one and only title that was recommended that came out was what about Kin? And everyone was like, "Yep, that's great." So on a general level, it's about the celestial elements, but they all tell a story that kind of goes more to like your relations of who you might have and that kind of thing.
That's awesome.
Awesome. Very much so.
Yeah.
So with speaking of like Ken, I noticed during your footnotes here the Joe, which I'm assuming is related to Alex, did a lot of behind the scenes work with y'all on this album. Is that right? Also did slide guitar on one of the songs.
Yeah.
Yeah, on Gemini. Yeah, Joe was super key on this album for the vocals especially, man. He really the last two albums, Visions and Wherever It Goes, were completely self-produced, and I mean this one for the most part was self-produced as well. But we felt like we wanted to bring in some people to just give us some guidance on certain things. And Joe was Alex's dad, by the way. And,
Oh,
he's a
cool.
professional musician and like wicked singer, incredible like songwriter, arranger. So we just felt like comfortable putting our songs and like trusting our songs with him. And we also had Clove Lombardi as well help us with production, and he too is an incredible musician and songwriter. We just got like a kind of tight knit small group of people that we felt we can trust with our music. And yeah, Joe's been around since the beginning. I mean, he was the one who recorded Time Warp, like our first EP.
Yeah.
It's got to be a
Yeah, I
little
was gonna say,
helpful when you have that in the family, right? There's this, have a dad in the family who is a pro like that, right?
Yeah, it further kind of goes off like you're saying this idea of kin and the people who we consider close friends and family being a part of the music really special. And we brought Joe in to help us push our vocal performances and writing to the next level, and he absolutely did that. He was sitting in the booth with us during the sessions, helping us get through takes and giving us active notes, and he helped arrange some of the vocal melodies as well. And it was just really fun to be able to share that experience with Alex's dad, and he was there doing that with his dad, and it felt like a special work experience for sure.
That's very cool.
yeah, that's killer.
I have to go back to last year's album because last year's album had one of my favorite songs that I heard in a long time, still one of my favorite songs, Morning Prayer. Who's responsible for that? Because number one, it's again like it's probably my one of the songs I go to the most. But now that your new rock hit has come out, it's kind of taken it over. But who's responsible for Morning Prayer and how did that come to be? And what is that about? It seems like a pretty personal song. So I don't want to get too personal just in case, but if you don't mind, tell me a little bit about that one because it really, really connected with me.
I could remember us sitting at our newly, moved into jam space. It was one of our first sessions that we had gotten back into a jam space since before COVID. And Julian and I were just sitting on the couch. I had the guitar in my hand, he had the bass, and we just started riffing on the intro. We were just killing time. Alex was setting up, and it just came so organically. It was like the first words that was said in this band sonically in a very long time. And right away, Alex finished setting up. He jumped on the kit, and we just began jamming on that very mellow intro. And next thing you know, we got that chorus going, and we had this verse, chorus going for the song. And Alex felt really inspired to be singing over the chorus, and I had kind of found this melody for the verses, so that it just came out as an expression so naturally. And then a couple of jams later, I had come up with that outro jam riff after one of the sessions. I remember telling the guys, I was like, guys, I came up with this riff, and I played it, and they're like, "Oh, that's cool." And I was like, "Is it too like AC/DC sounding?" And they're like, "AC/DC? It sounds nothing like AC/DC."
Yeah, sounds like Santana.
Yeah.
So,
So that was a funny moment, but we ended up taking that jam for a ride, and it's probably one of the more fun parts of a song that we play live. It's a really fun song to play.
Very cool. I had to ask you about that one because that is one track that I consistently go back to in your discography. You mentioned playing live, and I follow you guys on the socials. It looks like you have a bunch of shows coming up. You playing some with Tumble, if I'm not mistaken. Did I see that correctly?
Yeah, we're performing with Tumble next week already. Yeah, they are starting their Lost in Light tour, and we're really lucky to be linking up with them in Kingston and in Ottawa midweek next week. Um, and that is also going to be kicking off our Kin tour as well. So those are going to be the first two shows that we're playing together in what'll be, I don't know, maybe a year. And it kicks off our tour. We'll be touring Quebec and Ontario for the better part of June, early July, and then we head over to Yellowknife to play a Folk on the Rocks festival, which is a great festival up here in the north. And we'll be linking up with a band from Yellowknife called Narwhal to do a run in Alberta. We've never been in Alberta before, which is a province out west here in Canada, and we'll be heading down for 4 dates there. So we're playing venues and bars that we know in the eastern part of town, and exploring some new places out west. So it's gonna be a pretty fun tour for us, and we get to connect with so many great bands. Tumble being the first, but we're playing with the Death Wheelers
Nice.
a couple of times as well, and we've always wanted to play with those guys. We're playing Rune Mountain Festival in Dunnville, the big Blackthorn Productions festival. So that's just going to be great. Sons of Arrakis and Biblical and all these fantastic bands like Acid Mammoth. And, we're really going to be shoulder to shoulder with some awesome bands this summer.
Very cool. Yeah, we've had Sons of Arrakis on. Really great guy. And I know where Alberta is, considering I'm a Florida Panther fan, and will be watching a lot of what's going on in Alberta
Yeah.
over the next couple of weeks. So that should be fun. Turbo, I'm sorry. What else do you got for the guys?
A few, well, one, as far as going out and doing your tour, will we be getting any live videos or from shows, or would you might be doing any live recording for future CDs or albums?
We are actually going to have an opportunity to do a live recording that's going to be professionally filmed as well later in the tour. It'll be it's kind of like a just off the tour dates kind of a situation where we're setting up in a studio, and we're invited into this space to do a proper recording and live performance. So that'll be really nice. It'll be almost near the end. It might even be after the tour is finished, and it'll be our last performance of this whole tour, which is nice to think that we will be at our most, hours played at that point, and it'll be nice to kind of send off that whole tour with one little keepsake of a live performance to be filmed, and it'll be a really nice memory to hang on to, and hopefully it'll showcase some really fleshed out music, because some of these songs have never been played live yet. They were just written in the studio for the record, and that was a fairly new experience for us as well. So it'll be nice to see how they react in the live setting early on, and even nicer to see how they blossom by the end of the tour.
Is that going to be live stuff that fans get to hear, or is that specifically for you guys to memorialize the tour?
It'll be put out at some point for sure. Yeah, we're doing
Excellent.
it to be able to share with everybody. So that'll be put out.
Love it. Love it. As greedy fans, we're very excited about that for sure. Um, Very cool. Turbo, anything else that you had for the guys before I
Yeah.
dominate the conversation again?
uh, Two more before you start going down the road. Um, One, I like the way this album starts out. I love the little intro and then the instrumental that you got before you go into Sunburner. Uh, I wanted to know who was playing bass. Now that I know that y'all switch it up, who was playing bass on Meteor? And also, I feel like is that just like a showcase for y'all, because it feels like y'all are just showing off.
That track, that came like super spontaneous after one of the jams we were doing in preparation for a run. I believe it was on the Visions tour. Um, and we just finished playing Face Down. Ben was on guitar, I was on bass, and then Alex just kicked into the fill, and we just went with it. And I don't know. Yeah, it's just a pure release of energy. There's not really like much overthinking involved, just kind of let it rip.
Yeah.
And yeah.
That song, the way it is right now, is almost note for note like the singular expression of the first time it was played. It was a lightning in a bottle moment. It's like a 2 minute and a half song, instrumental, so there was no need to stop or think about lyrics. That is just a pure snapshot of one of those moments where we just all locked in and just hopped on for the ride, and it ended where it ended naturally, and there was very little fine tuning um, in what became the final product of that track.
Sure. I feel like we're seeing more and more records that start with instrumentals, and you guys have kind of two instrumentals that starts it. And the first time I played the record, I'm like, I had to go back and look. I'm like, are they going to sing at some point? And obviously you guys do. I personally think you're showing off during Zenith as well, but that's a whole other story. Um, how did that come to be? Because that is a killer closer. And was there a thought process in the kind of fade out and fade back in, any kind of ode to something that you kind of threw in there at the end of the record?
I love the story behind Zenith. It was the guys were up here in Yellowknife. We were playing Folk on the Rocks 2 years ago, and it was the first time that they had visited me here, and we were all in my place, and we were just so happy again to be sharing space together on the road again together. We never take it for granted, and we were in my place. Julian had a small little bass amp that he was ripping this crazy fuzz distortion through. Alex was playing an electric kit because that's all I had set up. I had a little cube Roland cube amp that I was playing through, and I forget if it was the bass line that started first with that crazy distortion. Alex jumped in, and that song as well, very similar to Meteor, was a jam that we did in the moment that had very little retweaking. It was this expression that came out that we were lucky enough to catch and ride with such confidence until the end. We found it to be like a really nice way to close this record, just without words, just the three of us doing what we do. And at the end, we really liked playing around with the idea of YR4, the first instrumental kind of ambience track that starts the record, if that can kind of cycle back in a way to make this celestial cycle complete. Just like everything in the sky has a cycle, we wanted the music to also come in and out in a cyclical way.
Very cool. And to me, it also calls back to that kind of 90s vibe of the record. That was a very 90s thing to do back then, is to kind of have like a delay at the end, or whether it's a hidden track or whatever it is, noodling at the end. So I thought that was very cool as well. You mentioned a lot of these songs have not been played live. Are you going to play the majority of them live when you're out there? And are you going to play Morning Prayer for your live record that you're going to release? And if not, can I request it to be part of the set?
We will be playing most of this record live. I think everything, eh, Julian?
Yeah, we were working out the set last week, and I believe as of right now we have every single song that's on the record on our live set. It's something we've been really excited to do actually. Like every other record, we had gotten to play the songs multiple times live before going into record, but just because of the circumstances and how this record was made, like it was all pretty much like brand new material. We just haven't had the chance to play it live yet, so that's something we're very excited to do. It's like some high energy, heavy stuff, which hopefully translates really well in a live setting.
I think it also goes to show how strongly we feel about this record. There hasn't been a record that we've put out that we've played every single song live, whether that be because it's a tricky arrangement with acoustics, or whether it be there's some songs that at the end of the day were fun to record but didn't make the cut for what we felt like we wanted to play live over the years. This is the first time where we're like, yep, we got to play every single one of these songs. Um, and in terms of morning prayer, I believe we might have some old footage of us recording morning prayer live in a live video audio situation that we kind of just had in the vault. So it probably won't make this new cut because there's only so many new songs that we're really excited to kind of work through. But we do have Morning Prayer locked up, and I'm sure one day, especially with this comment, it will see the light of day.
Sometimes
So
Love
you
thank
need
that.
you
some,
for the request.
yeah,
Love
Special
that.
some
seven
positive
inch just for
reinforcement.
Rich.
I'll finance it. Please, come on. Let's make it happen. Um, Turbo always has knows that I ask Canadian band questions to Canadian bands. But if you guys had to pick your favorite Canadian band, whether it's the most influential, the one that you would go to the most, or the one that maybe you would pick that people might not expect, what would you guys say? And we can start with Julian because I'm looking at him first.
All right, I'm just gonna take a second to think because I have an answer that came to mind right away, and it's the most obvious answer you could think of. It's Rush. Like, just love Rush. They're the first CD I ever bought when I was like 12 years old, and I went to HMV to pick out a CD. I bought their first record, and yeah, man, I'm trying to think if there's another band that would be above them, another Canadian band, and I don't know if there is for me, man. They're just awesome. I love their 70s stuff. I love their 80s stuff. The first record doesn't have Neil Peart, and it's more like hard rock, and it's a little different sounding than their other stuff, but I love that too. And yeah, man, it's probably Rush for me, man.
Yeah, it's not. I think for a tiny little bit of time, it was embarrassing for people to admit how much they love Rush, but especially like the '80s stuff when the synths came in. But like now, it doesn't matter. Like you can love Rush, and it doesn't matter what era of Rush you can love either. So I accept that answer. Good answer. At HMV too, I went to school near the border of Canada and used to drive to HMV because the CDs at the time were way cheaper in Canada than they were in the US. So we drive to Toronto and just do some serious HMV crushing, and then put $50 in the slot machines in Niagara Falls because the rate, well, I used to get $75 for my 50, so it would last us forever and free drinks. So yeah, my border story. How about you, Ben? What would you go to?
I think I'll give like a classic answer and then like a contemporary answer, like modern day answer. I think I'll have to say Neil Young. I'm a huge fan of how that kind of country music started blending into grunge music, and how that those two worlds overlap was really an inspiring sound for me. I think I probably started listening to grunge music first, and then through my grunge listening experience, you end up, listening to Neil Young and being all these grunge heads are like, yeah, Neil Young invented grunge, and that's what they say and stuff. And I was like, interesting. I wonder how they would think that. And then sure enough, you go listen to those Neil Young records, and it's really raw, really raw. I think it's so badass. And, I love the songwriting, the lyrics. It's so inspiring to see someone just tell such a good story. And whether it's just him with one guitar or with a full band all plugged in, I really appreciate that sound. I would say bands of today who are kicking around, I really love You Do Right. They're a band from Montreal. Um, what is the Krautrock? They're a krautrock band, and
Hmm.
I can't say that I've really dove into that genre very much. But the first time I heard them, I was like, "Oh, this is kind of like a very heavy Yawning Man kind of band." They're fairly instrumental, but I've seen them open for bands like Kikigaku Moyo, big psych giants from Japan, and um, I am just blown away each time by You Do Right. Very, very cool band. Yeah,
They're a Montreal band?
yeah, Montreal band.
Cool. I'll have to check them out. Another Montreal band, another one. It's funny. We interviewed the band Witch Rot from they're from I want to
Toronto.
say Toronto, right? Yeah. And they cover a Neil Young song, and I said, "Is it like in the charter that Canadians have to cover Neil Young?" He's like, he's practically American at this point. Is what I think is what he said, what they said in that interview. So I was like, I'm also always intrigued by, and again, as an American, uh, the what bands like you guys and more of like the underground bands think of like the Tragically Hip being such a huge Canadian institution. Like down here, you watch that and it's like, they seem like just they were. something beyond a musical group there, but I don't know how that translates to like the scene that you guys are in. I mean, are there hip fans like in that indie kind of underground heavy rock scene, or is it just you appreciate what they have done for Canadian music?
It might be that the fandom of the Tragically Hip might be a little more prevalent in sort of like the more like indie rock scene, sort of in the stoner rock scene, at least among the bands that we've like played with and hung out with. They're not really a band that gets brought up a lot, unless I'm mistaken, Ben. But I don't know. For me personally, I have to say not a huge fan, so I'll just leave it at that.
The
But
first Canadian I've ever
I
heard say
never
that.
they never really clicked with me. I just they're just a band I never really got.
I'll have to say myself as well. I haven't read those pages. You know what I mean? I haven't. You hear them on the radio. They're that kind of band that hold down the slots on the big FM radio stations, and I don't have a very strong opinion. I'm pretty neutral, but I haven't ever sought out a Tragically Hip record, and I can't say that I've done the homework on that front. So in
Interesting.
terms of how that resonates within our band, I don't think it's a band or a sound that we ever kind of speak to. But a lot of people really love the hip, and I could respect their status and the music that they've brought and everything that they've done. It's just yeah, not my cup of tea, I guess.
See, the
That's quite
ignorant
all
American
right.
has to ask these questions so he can get educated on what's really going on. One more question about specific and kind of again back to Canada, but you guys are now with Ryan on Black Throne Productions, which makes perfect sense given all the bands that are on that label. And you said heavy, like the new Ox record, which crushes Turbo and I like into the ground and squishes us to death because it's so friggin' heavy. But how did you come to connect with Ryan? I assume it was through some of the other bands or just kind of him having his finger on the pulse of that scene. But how'd you guys connect?
It was in booking our Wherever It Goes tour, which was fall of 2023. I was booking the tour and I was reaching out to different bands that I knew of or that I was discovering in the different cities across Eastern Canada. And I would reach out to them and I'd ask for their availability. And, a lot of bands on my go-to list initially were really busy around that time. But I kept the list of everyone. And as I was doing more and more homework on all these bands, I took a step back. I said, "Holy, these guys are all signed to Black Throne Productions. This is a scene that I've tapped into here." But and I kind of went into that blind. I just liked all their music, and then later did I find out they were all had a common element, which was Black Throne Productions, which is fairly new at the time. So I hadn't heard of Black Throne, although I had heard of all these other bands. And so we toured that tour in 2023, and it was during that tour that Ryan reached out and just said, "Hey, maybe we should work together just to plan some shows. Start there." And um, we ended up working together with Black Throne to book the tour for Visions. So although Visions was an independent release, we did work with Black Throne. That was our first kind of sit at the table and work together on something, which was planning this tour. In planning the tour, we got to play alongside a lot more of Black Throne bands, meet all the great people who are affiliated with the label and playing those bands. We got to play Rune Mountain Fest. We worked with Strange Matter Light Show, which is Ryan's Liquid Light Show that he does. He did a couple of our shows, and we kind of just got introduced to what the Black Throne scene was, who it was, and the kind of standards and morals they represented. And at the end of that tour is when we got the offer to put our next record out with them, and we were just elated. The last show of that tour was Rune Mountain Fest, right in their home field, and that's where it all kind of culminated into let's work together for the next one. And it just felt right that we had a couple of months leading up to work hand in hand and kind of feel each other out, make sure that it was going to be a good fit. And I think for both sides, we were both really. It kind of just seemed like a no brainer to be working with them. And we had been independent the entirety of our career, so we were really excited to get an offer that we felt like our music could have a good home, that we feel comfortable and inspired to be there with. So that's how that started. And they've taken this whole release up a whole level. Working with them has been incredible. We just feel so lucky and grateful and spoiled to have such good support from the label. They help us with the aesthetic, with the marketing. They're really trusting with what we want to do as artists with the music and with the art, and it's very collaborative. It's super fair deal, and just on all fronts, it's really been an awesome experience so far.
Very cool.
Really cool.
Very cool. Well, Turbo, we've kept them longer than we promised, so I do want to give Turbo a chance to ask any more questions that he might have before we let the guys go. But Turbo, anything else you have for them?
Just this one, and it's kind of a quirky question, because I listen to music a lot and mostly through headphones, and I always hear things, and maybe it's just audio hallucinations, but on Prominence, right before the guitar solo, I feel like I hear harmonica in the mix, but I don't see harmonica anywhere listed as an instrument that's being played. So is that just me being insane, or did y'all sneak one in there?
No, there's no harmonica in Prominence, but right before the solo, there is a subtle guitar that's kind of in the background with like a wah sort of like building up a little bit into it, and it was just one of those little sort of ear candy things because we felt that the solo maybe came in a bit too like abrupt, so we just wanted to kind of smooth that transition a little bit with like this guitar. But it's a background guitar. I forgive anyone for thinking it's something else but a guitar.
It's really cool. I enjoyed it. It was just one of those
That's
things I was thinking,
He
couldn't
heard
figure out what it
something.
was.
it's cool you picked up on it though. That's a pretty subtle little thing.
That's a cute listening for sure, and detective work to try to figure it out as well. So,
Yeah.
the album's not out yet, so you guys are some of the first people to hear it and to speak with us about it. So we're really grateful for the amount of like detail and what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of love for your craft that you both bring in terms of supporting the music scene and listening with such intent. It's been a real pleasure to talk with y'all, and thank you so much for listening and giving us such great feedback on the record. It really means a lot.
Absolutely. We're excited.
Thank
And
you.
I'd be
Yeah.
remiss if I didn't give Turbo shit for being 0 for 2 in hearing instruments. Because with Holy Roller in our interview last week, he thought he was hearing cowbell, but it was a phantom cowbell too. So 0 for 2 Turbo, but I'm not keeping track at all. But you guys, thank you so much.
Thank
The new
you.
record is called Kin. It comes out on June 20th from Blackthorn Productions. Go buy the CD, go buy the vinyl, go download it. You guys will not be disappointed. We love Mooch, but we love Mooch even more now because this is absolutely your best record, and it's going to be huge for you guys, and all the most success. And good luck on the tour, and come back and talk to us, please, if you have some time, sometime down the line.
Of course, anytime. Thank you both so much. It was a pleasure meeting you.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Have a great
Good
night.
meeting you all. Thanks a lot.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Hope you guys dug that interview with Alex and Ben from Mooch. Super cool guys. Could have talked to them for a lot longer as well. I asked a stupid Tragically Hip question, but hey, it's a Canadian band and this is what I do. So anyway, we have a lot of really cool shows coming up. I say that all the time, but we just continue to have amazing bands who are willing to come and talk to us. So we're super excited for that. I have to say this now because we have a YouTube channel, so like and subscribe or whatever you do to a YouTube channel. But also, if you still just like the audio, go get your podcast wherever you were getting it before. But come, if you want to look at us, look at the bands, go to our YouTube channel and check it out. But for now, again, I'm Rich, Fuzz Doom Rip on X, all the other socials, Musipedia of Metal doing reviews, Doom Charts contributor, and Turbo. Why don't you take us home?
Thank you very much. Keep it heavy and play it loud. Till next time.
See ya.